when Nipsey died, right? When Nipsey got killed, we probably had about 300, 375, 400 kids that was in our program. And I had the travel basketball team. We had a contract with Adidas that was worth about $3 million that Kanye West gave us.
Wow.
And then I had like a bunch of other different contracts. And for a nonprofit, we were really thriving. Then Nipsey gets killed. Well, after Nipsey get killed, then the rumor goes out, Big U had something to do. We lost everything.
You lost all those?
When I tell you everything.
Wow.
Kanye stopped answering the phone. Adidas stopped answering the phone. And I ended up almost going dead broke because we already committed to these teams.
You get a call from Big U telling you Nipsey just got killed.
Yeah.
You panic, call Nip. Nip answer the phone.
Yeah.
And 30 minutes after you get off the phone with Nip, he get killed.
Yeah, I got it.
So you think he hit you a little too early?
Eugene Henley, widely known as Big U, is facing the fight of his life after a federal grand jury hit him with a staggering 43-count indictment. And controversial singer turned secret revealer Jaguar is now claiming Nipsey Hussle was one of Big U's victims. The charges the gang leader is carrying range from racketeering and murder to fraud and extortion, painting a grim picture of his alleged activities. The 58-year-old, once seen as a reformed gang leader turned community activist, now faces the very real possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. But his connection to Nipsey's death has brought new life to a case that was seen as settled.
A music executive and community activist is accused of running a criminal empire in Los Angeles. Eugene Henley Jr. facing RICO charges, allegedly tying him to the notorious Rollin' 60s street gang.
Jaguar aside, former death row femc SKG, Suge Knight Girl, spoke with TMZ and alleged that Big U had something to do with the murder of Nipsey Hussle when asked about it. In addition, SKG celebrated Big U's arrest on these RICO charges, which he turned himself in for but vehemently denied on social media. She called him an exploitative and abusive monster who arranged for people to jump her on numerous occasions and extorted others in order to not work with her. These details are still unconfirmed, though, so take everything with a grain of salt. SKG spent the past few years making similar accusations against U, even allegedly speaking with the family of the murdered Rayshawn Williams and with WAC 100. Federal prosecutors allege that Big U ran a criminal empire under the guise of his community work. The indictment accuses him of using his ties to the notorious Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips to extort businesses, commit fraud, and orchestrate violent crimes, including murder. Authorities claim that despite his public persona as an advocate for youth programs and gang intervention, he was secretly operating a mafia-like enterprise that intimidated and exploited the very community he claimed to help. But first, let's get back to the day Nipsey lost his life to get to understand all this. The afternoon of March 31st, 2019, was warm in Los Angeles, the kind of day that made the city's endless sprawl shimmer beneath the California sun. The streets of South Central buzzed with the usual rhythms, cars cruising with bass-heavy beats, laughter from neighborhood kids playing on the sidewalks, and the ever-present hum of an area teetering between survival and success. On this fateful day, however, the vibrant community of Crenshaw and Slauson would fall silent in mourning as the world lost a hero. Nipsey Hussle, born Ermias Asghedom, was more than just a rapper. He was an icon, an entrepreneur, and a beacon of hope for his people. He had made it out of the trenches but never truly left, determined to uplift his community through business, investment, and advocacy. His Marathon clothing store stood as a testament to his vision, an emblem of Black ownership in a neighborhood plagued by systemic struggles. And yet, it was right there, outside his own establishment, that Nipsey would take his final breaths. Nipsey wasn't supposed to be at the store that day. He had left home spontaneously, without security, to meet a friend who had recently been released from prison. The plan was simple: get him some fresh gear so he could look sharp, a small act of generosity that encapsulated the rapper's spirit. But fate had other plans. As he stood outside the store, greeting fans and chatting with familiar faces, the air was thick with a sense of normalcy. Then came Eric Holder, a known affiliate of the Rollin 60s Crips, the same set Nipsey was a part of and that which was allegedly being run by Big U. Holder approached with a casual stride. The exchange between the two was brief but fateful. Words were spoken, accusations exchanged. Nipsey had allegedly called Holder a snitch, a label that, in gang culture, is a scarlet letter that could lead to exile, violence, or worse. Holder walked away, but the anger in his eyes was unmistakable. Minutes later, Holder returned, this time with a gun in hand. The air cracked with gunfire as multiple shots rang out, sending panic through the onlookers. Nipsey fell to the pavement, his body riddled with bullets, one to the head, others to the torso. Witnesses watched in horror as Holder coldly delivered a final kick to the rapper's head before fleeing the scene. Chaos erupted. Blood stained the sidewalk outside the Marathon clothing store. People screamed. Some ran for cover, and others rushed to Nipsey's side. Paramedics arrived swiftly, performing CPR in a desperate attempt to save him, but the wounds were too severe. At 3:55 p.m. at the age of 33, Nipsey Hussle was pronounced dead at a local hospital. The streets of South Central had long been a battlefield where alliances and rivalries dictated life and death. Nipsey was no stranger to this world. He had grown up in it, navigating the gang landscape with the wisdom of a man who had seen too many young black men fall victim to it. But he had evolved beyond the violence, using his influence to broker peace, offering gang members alternatives to a life of crime. His death, however, bore the hallmarks of an internal dispute rather than a broad gang war. Eric Holder was not an enemy from a rival gang, but a familiar face from within Nipsey's own circle, meaning someone from within was definitely using him. This was not a hit orchestrated by an outside force. It was a personal vendetta, a moment of unchecked ego and street politics colliding in deadly fashion. Law enforcement officials quickly classified the killing as gang-related, not in the sense of a war between factions, but in the way disputes are handled within the code of the streets. To call someone a snitch is to strip them of respect, and in the hyper-masculine world of gang culture, where reputation is everything, such an accusation can mean life or death. Holder, unable to handle the perceived slight, reacted in the most violent way possible. News of Nipsey's murder spread like wildfire. Fans, friends, and fellow artists were in disbelief. Social media exploded with grief-stricken tributes. Candlelit vigils sprung up across the country. His name was on the lips of millions who recognized not just the loss of an artist, but the loss of a leader. His murder also reignited conversations about gang culture, violence, and the difficulty of escaping the cycle. If a man like Nipsey, who had dedicated himself to change, could still be gunned down in his own neighborhood, what hope was there for anyone else trying to make it out? Eric Holder was arrested 2 days later in Bellflower, California, after a citywide manhunt. In court, the prosecution argued that this was a premeditated act of murder. The jury agreed. In 2023, Holder was sentenced to 60 years to life in prison. For some, this was justice. But for Nipsey's loved ones, no prison sentence could bring him back. No verdict could fill the void he left behind. But now, new allegations inviting Big U to the conversation may change everything we previously believed. After all, this guy is not new in the killing world. His most serious allegations include the murder of Rayshawn Williams, an aspiring rapper who was found dead in the Las Vegas desert in 2021. Prosecutors believe Williams was executed after releasing a diss track that may have angered Big U. The case adds another layer of intrigue to the story, linking the worlds of hip-hop and organized crime. The suspect was taken into custody on March 19, 2025, after allegedly trying to flee. Court documents reveal that his phone mysteriously stopped transmitting location data hours before his arrest, raising suspicions that he was attempting to evade law enforcement. Authorities say they found evidence linking him to the charges, including a subpoena left behind at his home near a Seattle Mariners hat, a symbol reportedly linked to the Rollin 60s. Big U's past is well documented. In the 1980s, he was a feared figure within the Rollin 60s Crips, one of Los Angeles' most powerful gangs. His criminal activities landed him in prison for over a decade. Upon his release, he claimed to have turned over a new leaf, founding the nonprofit Developing Options, which was supposed to steer young people away from gang life. His organization received millions in government funding, but prosecutors now say money was being funneled into illegal activities. Instead of using it to uplift the community, they claim Yu was using his influence to extort celebrities, control the entertainment industry in Los Angeles, and orchestrate violence. One of the most shocking revelations from the indictment is Big U's alleged role in a widespread extortion scheme known as the check-in system. According to prosecutors, athletes, musicians, and actors who wanted to work or move freely in Los Angeles had to check in with him for protection or risk retaliation. Some reportedly paid large sums to avoid trouble. One witness told investigators that NBA players and Hollywood figures had to seek Yu's approval before attending events or working on projects in the city. The indictment even includes video footage of the gang leader saying, "If you don't check in, we'll Yu in ourselves." Aside from violence and extortion, Yu is accused of orchestrating multiple financial crimes. Prosecutors say he misused over $2 million in public funds for his nonprofit and even pocketed donations from NBA players. The indictment also alleges that he acted as a debt collector for illegal loans, sending associates to pressure individuals into paying back money owed to his criminal network. Before his arrest, the suspect took to social media to deny the allegations. In videos posted to the Crenshaw Cougars Instagram page, he dismissed the charges as an attack on his character. "This is how they get you. They take a couple of people and twist their words. There's no real evidence," he claimed. He also suggested that racial profiling played a role in his arrest. "This is what happens when a black man tries to help his community." Prosecutors, however, argue that these statements were meant to intimidate potential witnesses and sway public opinion. Big U's arraignment is set for April 8, 2025, at which time he will formally respond to the charges. Legal experts predict a long and complex trial, with prosecutors determined to dismantle what they call a dangerous criminal enterprise. The case has already sent shockwaves through Los Angeles, raising serious questions about the intersection of gang culture, the entertainment industry, and nonprofit funding. If convicted, Yu could spend the rest of his life in federal prison, marking a dramatic downfall for a man who once claimed to be a force for positive change. As authorities seized his black 2021 Mercedes and searched his 2 LA homes, the gang leader took to social media, claiming the FBI raids were the price he paid as a black man trying to help his community. Investigators reportedly found a blue Seattle Mariners hat associated with the Crips next to a subpoena at one of his residences after he briefly evaded authorities. In an Instagram video posted to Crenshaw Cougars, an account largely devoted to his charitable work with children, he denied being on the run, instead stating he planned to turn himself in, which he did later that night. "I ain't did nothing," he insisted in the video. "I ain't been nothing but a help to our community. This the price of being black and trying to help somebody, trying to help your community and do what you can." Big U, credited with launching the late Nipsey Hussle's career, is a recognizable figure in LA. Prosecutors identify him as a well-known enforcer for the Rollin' 60s during the Crips expansion throughout many LA neighborhoods in the 1980s. During that period, prosecutors say he fostered a fierce and earned reputation for violence, which included multiple charges for first-degree murder, as well as a charge for attempted murder of a peace officer. He served a 23-year sentence beginning in 1991 on numerous charges, during which he maintained his violent reputation. In a documentary series produced by Big U, Snoop Dogg described him as institutionalized, adding, "You say the wrong thing, you get F it up." He was short-tempered and serious about the S he was on. "Something about him I liked because I felt like he was a leader." After his 2004 prison release, prosecutors say Yu became involved in the music industry. He met Nipsey Hussle in 2008, and the two were close until a dispute over music equipment escalated into an armed confrontation that ended without bloodshed when the rapper's brother intervened. LAPD reports documented that violence erupted, and when LAPD officers arrived on the scene, a firearm was present and discharged, the indictment states. While no one was injured in that incident, Nipsey Hussle would later be murdered by Rollin' 60s member Eric Holder Jr. in 2019, who is now serving a 60-year sentence. His indictment also points to Big U's podcast, Checkin' In, which opened with a theme song explaining, "When you hop off the plane, check in. Penthouse suite, check in. When your feet hit the street, check in. 'Cause if not, get hot, you better check in." Prosecutors claim this was code for extortion, explaining, "The check-in included both a payment to the Big U enterprise as well as requesting permission from the gang leader to conduct certain activities." In 2022, rapper Quando Rando was killed, allegedly by Grammy-winning rapper Lil Durk, in what prosecutors describe as a drive-by murder for hire that Big U reportedly cited as a consequence of not checking in until it was too late. That killing came a year after the January 2021 murder of rapper Rayshawn Williams, who recorded on U's label Unique Records. As mentioned earlier, Williams had created a diss song targeting Henley, according to an FBI agent. In the song, he called Big U the bro that makes some money and acknowledged he might get shot in the face for his lyrics. Days later, Williams was shot in the face and left in the desert. His family told police that the late rapper had trusted Big U, having grown up playing football with the music executive as his coach, but they believe the music mogul was responsible for his death. The extensive allegations in the 107-page indictment contradict U's public image as a reformed individual. According to wiretapped conversations from January 2023, he reportedly bragged that no one could beef with him because "I'ma kill him, period. I am going to murder him." Later that year, while discussing gang politics with a co-conspirator, he allegedly stated, "I'm retired, N. Activist. I'll pull up on your block right now, N, and show up and show out, N, what happened to the last N that thought I was retired." So, was Nipsey one of the people who thought he was retired, and he killed him just to prove a point? It's just getting started. Stay tuned for more updates. And that's it from us today until next time. Thank you for watching.